Today we'll take a look at settled's GOM data product as it relates to suitability and capability for permitting and rig scheduling. So as you can see, we have a full exploration production data set here. We have everything from land lease, well production, infrastructure, pipelines, permits, plans, activity, HSE data sets. We have 93 feature classes that come as part of this E&P data set. What we're going to look at today is Chevron's current use of the Transocean Discover Inspiration drillship. It is contracted through July 23rd, 2019. Let's go see where that drillship is currently. So it's at Tahiti. So as you can see, the Transocean Discover Inspiration is in Green Canyon 640 at the moment. Let us postulate that this rig is finishing up and is ready to be moved. Our next question is, where might they be going next? Let's take a look at that. All right, so now I'm going to reset the view. And we're going to query for Chevron permits. So applications and permits to drill in the last 6 months. It's a good place to start. So let's return all features within the full extent. And you see there are 24. In the Gulf of Mexico, there can be revised permits, so there's likely only the 4 sites we see on the screen. A couple in Mississippi Canyon, 1 in Green Canyon, and 1 in Walker Ridge. As we saw, the Discover Inspiration is currently at Tahiti. Drilling that permit. And if we go down and look at Walker Ridge, way down here. That's another Transocean rig, the Deepwater Conqueror. Let's say the Deepwater Conqueror just arrived and it's got a lot of work to do. It's going to be there for at least a couple months. So that leaves us wanting to look at the other 2 areas that have permits stacked up, which is in Mississippi Canyon. Chevron permits. 2 different areas in Mississippi Canyon here. Looks like one of them is already being drilled by the Pacific Sharav. I believe that was a discovery, a recent discovery. But there's this one permit here in Mississippi Canyon 610 that's on an unnamed prospect. Chevron operates the block, 75% interest. Total has 25%. Looks like this permit, let's say that the Discover Inspiration will be headed here. This location in MC 610 is fairly deep, with a water depth of over 7,000 feet. These drill ships like the Transocean Discoverer. Inspiration are dynamically positioned, otherwise known as DP, and so they're constantly firing thrusters to stay on location, not moving or pinching off the drill stem. This requires a pentagonal array of sensors on the seafloor, and anytime you place anything on the seafloor, that requires site clearance. So there's a notice to lessees, the BOEM, BSEE, they publish some guidelines, some requirements for permits, and typically a pentagonal array of sensors would be placed at a radius of 30% of water depth. So that would be around 2,125 feet radius, 5 sensors placed in a pentagon, all triangulating, keeping the boat on station as it drills this well. Let's say that the drilling campaign here will be 180 days. Say there's quite a bit of drilling to do. And so that would put us out to, say, mid-September 2018. Almost a year to go after that to plan locations for this particular rig. So that's what's next. So leaving this area, as we can assume this permit is good to go. The rig will spend, like we said, possibly 6 months here. We're looking at the next year after that, from September 2018 through the end of July 2019. What are they going to do with this rig? These rigs with a full crew stacked on them often are costing the operator upwards of $1 million per day. That includes the actual, usually it's several hundred thousand a day to Transocean, several hundred thousand in terms of other service contractors working on the rig. So it's quite an operation. And when they move rigs, you typically want to do that as quickly as possible, get on location and get fired up. So these schedules have to be exact, and there's got to be multiple options for operators. So let's step back out. And let's query for let's just do leases active Chevron for a moment and see what we get. Should be quite a number of leases. And let's do ones that expire relatively, within the next couple years. So between 1 and 730. So it looks like that answer is majority is out here in some greenfield areas. But I do see a couple in Mississippi Canyon. And these are 100% Chevron. You want to look and see, are they near other development? We don't know the grading of prospects internally at Chevron. We're just doing this analysis strictly from what do they have, how long will they have a rig, and where should that rig be going. So let's zoom back to that answer. Take a look over here. These are very green field areas. There's not a lot of development. What we're seeing these days is a lot of infield development. We're also going to consider things like whale migration, right whale migration, loggerhead turtle habitat areas, reefs, various other aspects to understanding where should I be looking to file my next permit. Wanted to show you Chevron's full position. So Chevron has 181 leases in the Gulf of Mexico, mainly deep water, but they do have some shallow water properties. Earlier, we limited to leases that expired in the next 2 years, but we have already said that our lease, our rig, is going to be tied up for the next 6 months. So let's limit to leases that expire between 6 months out and 2 years out. So that 181 leases goes to 13 leases. Some up here in Mississippi Canyon, Walker Ridge, Green Canyon, Garden Banks, Keithley Canyon, East Breaks. That's still a long list, so let's see if we can limit some more based on proximity to existing infrastructure. So let's go with platforms major. Let's do 10 miles. So Chevron expires between 6 months, 2 years out, and within 10 miles of a major platform. So that limits us to 2 results. One up here in Mississippi Canyon, one down here in Garden Banks. Let's take a look at this one here in Garden Banks. Looks like it's close to Magnolia. Magnolia would be the processing facility and would pump the oil and gas to shore through these export lines. Chevron would be building umbilicals, jumpers, flow lines from this remote site to Magnolia for export, for processing and export. Same with the other site. So this one is in Mississippi Canyon, and it's close to Delta House. Same story. Delta House would be the processing facility and would pump the oil and gas to shore this way. This site here would simply need to have hydraulic and electrical umbilicals tethered from Delta House to the site to control subsea kit there. And then the hydrocarbons produced would be pumped back to Delta House for processing and export to shore. So both of these sites look fairly good so far, but we need to consider the HSE aspects. So far we've limited down to sites Chevron may want to drill to hold by production. They don't want to let these leases go because theoretically they have great prospects on them. And once they drill a hole, spend some money, file a discovery notice as well, they can turn in some documents to announce their intention to develop the area and thereby hold the lease, extend the lease terms, and not let it go through expiry. So both of these sites look fairly decent as far as our criteria. but we need to take a look at HSE aspects. So at Settled, we have HSE Near Me tool, which talks to various HSE layers in this map that are not currently on. As we discussed prior, the drill ship is positioned, stays on location by triangulating with a pentagonal array of transponders. In the past, we would have to clear, with site clearance, we'd have to clear a much larger area due to mooring lines. There would be, between 8 and 12 mooring lines stretched out across several blocks. Could be up to 5 miles a piece as far as diameter, excuse me. And what we have now is a pentagonal array, as we discussed in the prior example. It would be a diameter about 4,000 feet, so less than 1 mile. These blocks are 3 miles wide, so I'm going to go with a 3-mile analysis, and I'm going to pick the center of the block. So my block was 122. So you see it's looking around through all the layers that we have in the map to determine which intersect this radius. And that result is returned. You can see there's some confirmed corals there. There's a salt diapir here. There are various things showing up here. The hatch is our symbology for arch blocks, archaeological significance. Arch blocks require denser survey spacing or higher res seabed survey data collected if you want to get a permit and develop this area. So that is one drawback for this particular block. Although there isn't a lot of HSE obstruction in the area. There's not a lot of concern other than the arch block. The archaeological significance blocks, the arch blocks, are the government trying to preserve older shipwrecks for historical purposes, historical significance. So yeah, this block here, if the prospect's up here, pretty good. Just would spend a little bit more on the seabed survey to clear that site and get that permit. So let's go back to the query. And let's go find that other block. Let's do the same analysis here. Which would mean the HSE near me. And let's do 3 miles once again. And plant a point right in the middle. So you see the system is looking through a variety of layers. And there's a BP cable that runs to this block and a service line. Generally, not a whole lot going on in the block aside from there are some seeps down here far enough away, it probably doesn't matter. You'd be looking for gas vents and other things, gas hydrates, anything, shallow hazards, basically. That's what a lot of the sub-bottom profiler data is for in a seabed survey, is looking down to see potential for blowouts and other things. The seeps are down here. These leases are expiring. Pipelines, it's the cables. It's a loggerhead turtle area, which much of the Gulf of Mexico is. And that's about it for this area. As long as the prospect is, down here or up there or somewhere that's clear of these cables and those don't interfere with any plans. You also want to take a look at the path back to the host. So not only did we look at the HSE of the particular area, but how do I get my lines from here to there? And that path looks fairly clear for this site. Next up, we need to check the bathymetry. And wow, it looks like there's quite a canyon between this block of interest and Magnolia. So there's going to be some added development cost for this area. As we said, the other site has some added cost in terms of requiring a denser line spacing for the arch block, but this site here is going to require quite a bit of engineering to get some flow lines umbilicals back to Magnolia. So either site is a good candidate to apply for a permit, and we've got 6 months until the rig is done at its next location. If in a hurry, Chevron could get together with a seabed survey company, survey these locations, either this or the other one, and get them on the radar for the rig. Let's take a look at the other location for bathymetry. Before we go, I'll turn off the block so you can get a better view of this canyon. There we are. So we see this is some pretty good slope here. So yeah, there's going to be some need to go around some of this. We wouldn't go straight through here with lines. We'd probably go around this way. Yeah, there's some added cost there. So let's go take a look at this other site where we plan to route flow lines umbilicals down to Delta House. And we can see that this is a little more benign area. So while it does have an added cost for the arch block designation and the denser survey, some of the engineering development should be cheaper and easier. So really, both of these sites are suitable, and Chevron is capable of preparing them for permit via seabed survey, and each of them should fit in to the rig schedule. And thank you for listening.